A Build Hatch developed production.
Hello, I'm Aaron Kyle and welcome to another episode of Build Hatch. On this week's episode of Build Hatch, I was in Melbourne recording at the showroom of Concrete Collective. Michael and Scott are old school mates who came together with slightly different careers in construction and teamed up to create one of Melbourne's leading suppliers and installers of architectural and custom-made concrete products. On this week's episode, you'll hear about how Michael and Scott have each other's backs both in business and in life, and the importance of going that extra mile with your clients by making the impossible possible. These guys are best mates, and it really showed during this podcast with their regular banter and mutual respect of one another, and I'm a massive fan of concrete architectural construction, so I really enjoyed talking to these guys. Now let's get into it. All right, Michael and Scott, welcome to Build Hatch.
Thank you for having us. It's good to be here.
Thank you very much.
That's okay. Now, today we're recording at Concrete Collective's Melbourne showroom, which is an incredible sight to see. But before we talk about your showroom, we always like to go back in time and hear about our guest's background. So where did you guys grow up?
I'm a Sydney-born boy, but spent my whole entire life up in Melbourne. So if people were to ask me sort of where do you see yourself, I'd say I'm absolutely a Melburnian. Go back to Sydney every now and then to visit the parents a few years ago and just felt like a complete outsider being up there, knew absolutely nothing about the place, and people would say, whereabouts are you born? And I'd just look at them with a blank face and just say, I don't even know what hospital I was born in. So I've grown up in Melbourne, spent a fair bit of time up around the northern suburbs, pretty much spent my whole life in Tree, Hilly, Eltham. And that's where I am still, milking it with the parents.
All right. What about you, Michael?
Melbourne, born and raised, from northern suburb Mill Park. Considered by some to be a bit of a rougher area, but it turned out to be all right, I would have thought. I was there until about a year ago, and then I've moved into Richmond, so currently residing there.
Okay. And so out of school, what sort of careers did you take once you finished school? What sort of jobs did you get into?
So we both attended Ivanhoe Grammar School. So we both come from really.
Yes, we're pretty fortunate in our education.
Yeah, absolutely, very fortunate to be given the opportunity to go to somewhere like Ivanhoe Grammar. And sort of I knew since I was a baby that I was going to do something with my hands. So the whole way through Ivanhoe, it was more of an opportunity for me to just spend time traveling overseas. But I knew deep down that I was going to be a carpenter, I was going to be a builder, I was going to do something with my hands. And going to Ivanhoe Grammar School probably wasn't fantastic for me to get the most academic out of it. But at the end of the day, I am who I am because I went to that school. And I've since come out of the school. There was 176 students in our year level, and I was the only one that was a tradie. Yeah, I can look back and say there's at least 10 or 15 of us now, but coming out of year 12, I was literally the only one. So for me, coming into a building industry was probably the best thing that ever happened to me.
But that's interesting. I mean, because I actually went to Peninsula School, so Peninsula School.
Bit of rivalry.
I wish you told us that earlier.
So we used to play, against your school in football, and
used to lose to us a fair bit.
And that's a similar view in that even in my year level, there was quite a mixed bag of, sure, there were a lot of kids that went on to attend university out of school, but looking back, a lot of my close mates didn't go to uni as well, and a lot of them are in construction world, and it's the work ethic and the values that you get from school. So even though not attending university, I still think it's obviously a privilege, and it certainly shapes your outlook on life and beyond business and personal lives, doesn't it?
Yeah, I've always been a firm believer in saying to people that, I am who I am because I went to that school, and I have no shame in saying that. I feel that sometimes I probably could have done a little bit more, but then I look back at my previous couple of years and I said, look what I've done since graduating in 2010. So 10 years ago, look what I've done in the last 10 years. I've done more academic studies in the last 10 years than I did in the whole entire time I was school. But that's fine. Like, some people just mature a little bit later than others.
So you're both Ivanhoe boys?
Yeah, so I went to the Ivanhoe campus and Michael went to Plenty campus. So
we managed to cross paths probably about year 9, we touched base. We went overseas to Ireland together on a footy tour, and we weren't really, we didn't have much to do with each other there. It was sort of on different wavelengths at that time. And then we happened to bump into each other again for a bit of a service project that we went to Cambodia in year 11. And that's where we sort of really hit it off. And I guess to give you some context, we are best mates, and, we built this business based on that. So that's where we sort of really hit it off, and finishing up in year 12, and then sort of after year 12 is where we really took off and really connected.
And like Scott, did you also want to do a trade out of school?
No, so I was the opposite. I was quite academic at school, and I wouldn't...
School captain, believe it or not.
Yeah. I would never thought in 10 years' time, if you asked me where I was, I'd be, making concrete. It wouldn't even be an option. So I did go to uni, went to Melbourne Uni, studied construction there. So I spent the
Sorry, what did you study before that?
Eh?
You studied before that engineering, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, I did, but then I flunked that, didn't I?
Spent more time at home sleeping than he did at university.
But we won't talk about that. But managed to finish uni and go into a graduate program at a tier 2 construction company where, I learnt enough, and then this sort of opportunity arose, and
It's funny because sort of at that stage I was during my apprenticeship, and I was sort of doing cashies on the weekend, and sort of Michael started coming along with me. We were working at his house on some deckings and installing spars and stuff, and that's sort of what gave Michael a fire in his belly. He was working with me, and he was, before that he'd never even touched anything to do with construction. He never did woodwork at school or anything. So just him sort of helping me and being my little apprentice at work sort of gave him the fire in the belly just to make him realise that, it's construction industry thing that I actually genuinely enjoy it. And that's, it's gone from an engineering degree where he's sitting at home sleeping to all of a sudden having this new invigorating fire in his belly for a construction industry. And then sure enough, he went off and went to Melbourne Uni and went back to Melbourne Uni and started construction. And that's sort of where it is. It's sort of like, even a couple of years before, if I said to him, can you see yourself in the construction industry? He probably would have looked at me with a blank face and said, yeah, absolutely not. It's just...
But already, just by sitting here in this short period of time, you can see where the relationship has begun, and you can see where it's heading. With Scott has the practical experience, the chippy, working in the industry, and then yourself, Michael, with the theory and the management, and then forming that together to create something special.
And that's why we sort of, there's days that we want to punch each other in the head, and then there's days where we sort of look at each other, and I look at him, I just think, there is no chance that I would ever be able to do that without him, and I know that he wouldn't be able to do that without me. So, we had a lot of people say to us when we first started the business, be careful of partnerships, especially with your best mates and family members and all that sort of stuff. Our accountant reeled off some statistic like 90% of partnerships fail, and we sort of looked at each other like, oh, okay, do we really want to do this? Yeah, do we want to go down this path? But, you've got to appreciate that he is who he is and I am who I am, and you just got to complement each other and just understand that, I try not to encroach on his area and you try not to encroach on my area, and we just complement each other as best as we can.
And looking at your amazing logo, am I correct in putting that together, that it's basically 2 semicircles or half circles, and next to that there's a solid circle? Is that yourselves? Does that reflect you coming together, forming a united sort of concrete collective? Is that where it comes from?
In all honesty, that is the first time I've ever even thought of it like that. And
oh, really?
I guess we did go to a branding company, and that's something we gave them in the brief, and they knew our story and we went there. But I can't say we have looked at it in that regard. But when you put it like that, it does symbolise quite a bit for sure. That's amazing. So there you go.
Who's who though? I'm the skinny guy, so I'm just the single, and you're the double. We had the old logo here that we got off Design Crowd, just a website, and then we had that for a few years, and then we decided that we wanted to do a bit of a rebrand. And sort of one of the key things, we went to the marketing company and said, this business over the last few years has been built around the story of our lives and the story of how we've come from where we were and come to where we are. And we got to that point where I thought, we need to become a professional organisation. We need to make this a company and less about us as people and more about the product, because at the end of the day, we make concrete products. It's not about Scott and Michael making concrete products. So sort of the brief to them was, try and remove us from the business. But it's interesting to see your take on that as well. It's sort of like it's nice to still know that there is a part in you. Like I can now look at that logo and say, oh yeah, I can see the familiarity with that now. So, as much as it's a sleek, professional, minimalistic sort of logo, it's a maker's mark. We call it a maker's mark. Like it's something where you don't need, McDonald's has it. They've got the golden arches, and you've got plenty of brands and businesses that have a mark that you can associate with a brand without having to see a name.
So Concrete Collective, how would you describe your business?
Probably the first thing I'd say is no, we do not do concrete driveways or crossovers or footpaths. We tend to say, architectural concrete products, and then people just sort of glaze over, and they have no idea what you're talking about. And then you just the quick and easy concrete benchtops, concrete vanities, tables, baths, and then they're back in with you again. But a lot of the time you have to show them some visual stuff.
I think with your type of business, it's one of those ones where people already know what you do when they come to you or before they come to you. So an architect who has a client that wants a concrete benchtop or a vanity or a very niche type of product that needs your business.
And that's what it is. It is a very niche product. So when people say to us, who are your clients? Are they the builders? Are they the architects? Are they the designers? It's sort of one of those ones where we've got a large mixed bag of everyone, depending on, how involved the client is within their build. A lot of the times we'll have the clients come to us, and a lot of the times the architects will come to us, and then probably, what would you say the percentages are on all of them?
It's obviously a third at the moment. It's starting to change to a point where we're more interacting with builders and architects rather than directly with clients. But eventually the client always comes into it because they want to choose their color. They want to choose their finish, which is the best part about our product. Is you come to the showroom, you see our range of finishes, range of options, and that's where the client sort of falls in love with the product, I guess. And that's what...
And that's the thing. It's an emotional product. It's something like a kitchen bench top is like, it's a marquee thing in someone's house. If you're choosing other elements within a build, you're never going to go and look at absolutely everything. But like kitchen bench tops are always one of those things where, it's a very personal thing to people, and they want to touch it and they want to look at it and feel it, and everything about it is personal because, that's one of the marquee things in their house. So that's why it's very important for us to have somewhere like up here, so that people can afford to do that.
So going back to when you first went out on your own, did you have another showroom or was this it?
No, so the first factory we moved into was actually 2 streets behind this one. It was about 200 square metres, and we had a very small office that we had there that we sort of worked in with computers wise, and it wasn't big enough for a showroom. And
so did that just evolve, or did you happen to foresee that you would need a showroom eventually, or was it purely at the start just a factory?
At the start, it was just like, we didn't know what we were doing. A factory like this is obviously double the price, so you got to have double the amount of work. So we didn't know what we were doing. We thought, so we signed the lease on that one for 2 years, and then within 18 months, we had to get out of there. Like we outgrew it within 18 months. Like we were struggling from probably 12 months onwards, but we sort of tried to stick it out as much as possible. And then this facility came up, and we ummed and ahed about it with a friend. We thought about factory sharing, which is probably one of the best things that we did not do. We wanted to sort of half it downstairs with one of our friends around the corner, and we came up here and ummed and ahed about it. And I remember calling it with Michael and just saying, there's no chance we can't factory share. I can already foresee that this is going to be an issue. And one of the key features was the fact that it had this obviously upstairs area that we could turn into a showroom, because it was just something that we lacked and something that we needed as a business. So it's probably one of the best things we ever did was move up here.
All right, so taking it back a bit to where you obviously had that established relationship and were starting out. How did you actually start out? Like take that plunge, or did you do something on the side until you could build up your business? How did all that work?
So being naive, and it's probably, if people ask me what I'd change when we started the business as young 23-year-olds with no idea about how the world works, we didn't really plan much, to be honest. We saw a bit of a hole in the market. Scotty did some work on a high-end residential project in Melbourne where he formed up quite a bit of concrete, and I was lucky enough to walk through that job and do some work on that job with him while I was at uni. But yeah, basically from that, we sort of sat down and Scotty goes, "Hey mate, are you enjoying what you're doing?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm so." He's like, listen, I reckon there's something here if we want to look into it. Like, there's not that many guys doing it. There's courses here, there's this, there. So we sort of went into it really blind. And before we had even done a course or before we had even poured a single piece of concrete and tried it, we actually rented a factory. We leased a factory, which was like, in hindsight, that's a big risk. But
you did what that old cliche saying is that, you know, when you're thinking about doing something and everyone says, oh, just take the plunge, take the leap, you'll be right.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes it works.
Yeah.
And the people that tell you that, I find, does work for them.
Yeah,
and the people that steer away from that sort of say, well, just little steps first.
Yeah, we got lucky. So I don't know where we get that sort of risk mentality and, you know, taking that leap mentality, because I know from my family's perspective, my mum and dad aren't that way inclined and I haven't been taught that way. So, and I guess Scotty's much the same. Our parents are very similar people and they get along really well. So it's interesting that we did do that. But again, people used to say, be careful and warn us and say, this isn't a small thing. You know, you're buying into something big here. But we knew that we weren't going to fail. We were going to make of it what we could. And that meant, you know, putting in hours. We both work full-time. Our full-time gigs in the construction game. Scotty's a chippy. We both worked our full-time gigs, came to the factory at 5 p.m. and we'd work through till 2, 3, 4 a.m. consistently, go home, get 4 or 5 hours sleep and then do it all again. And we did that consistently for 6 months until we got to a point where we had enough work and we basically burned ourselves out to get it started. But in saying that, doing what we did and allowing us to sort of fund things through our full-time employment and then do this after hours and on weekends, working basically, you know, anywhere between 15 to 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, allowed us to sort of bring in the work and get the work there while still not having to like ever be in any real debt or having to worry about that sort of stuff come in. So, and we're at a point in time, we're 23, no families, no mortgages, no nothing to worry about. So it was a good time for us to do it and put it all in. So,
and as I think you'll find also as you get a bit older, that risk mentality does drop away and you do tend to look back and go, wow, I can't believe I did that back then. Because when you're a bit older, you start to be a bit more safer. So I love it. Well, I think it's great.
I sort of look back and I just say, like, you know, there's no way that I would ever change that, because, you know, doing those hours and pushing ourselves to those limits and you know, we are who we are because of doing that sort of stuff. But then, you know, there comes times where things get a little bit tough at work or something doesn't go wrong, and you can look back and you say, man, we used to work, you know, 14, 16, 20-hour days and we still got up in the morning and came back. And sort of, you know, now when you come across something, a little hurdle or something like that, you can just look back and just say, like, you know, look what we went through back there to get to where we are now. It's not that big a deal. You know, things aren't that big a deal. Like, I'm sure if we thought about it and planned it and put a business model in place, we probably would have been a lot more disappointed because you wouldn't have been hitting your KPIs. You wouldn't have been doing all those sorts of stuff. Whereas we were running on adrenaline. That's all we were running on, was just each day was just exciting. So we never really got caught up in, are we meeting our KPIs? Are we making money? Because, you know, we wouldn't have made money for the first couple of years, but that's fine. Like, you know, most businesses don't. But if we had things in place.
So you had a vision.
Well, yeah, it was the long game vision. It was like just get up and just come to work and enjoy while you're at work and do what you can to make this, you know, why we are who we are and, you know, why we've been able to build to where we are now and have this beautiful showroom and have, you know, employees and money in the bank is because we worked so hard back then and we had a vision. We may not have had a business plan in place for that vision, but, you know, sometimes you just got to wing it. You just got to jump in. You got to jump in and just start swimming even if you don't know how to.
And you obviously trusted each other too. You had the backing of each other. And
that's like Michael said, you know, we've come from very similar lifestyles where, you know, like neither of us are we're financially motivated, but it's not our end game. Our end game is to just enjoy it. Enjoy the whole entire process.
And clearly you love it.
And that's the thing. You have to love it. If it was a financial thing and you were worried about money all the time, then our relationship would have broken down a long time ago, because, you know, if you're worried about your bottom line all the time, then we wouldn't be where we are now. We wouldn't even be talking. So we both came from from lifestyles where money wasn't the big driver. It was you'd have to get up and make sure you're doing something that you enjoy every day. Like my dad always says, like, if you do something you enjoy, you never work a day in your life. And I'm a true believer in that, because you can come to work and you're literally getting paid to do something that you enjoy. So, that's why I look back at, going to Ivanhoe Grammar School. I could have been an accountant or a land surveyor or an engineer, but would I enjoy it? Probably not. And when you got to work for 40 years doing something you don't enjoy, then,
But it's clearly all well worth it for that work ethic and that outlook on life. So can you guys remember the first job that you got with your business?
Yeah, so it was a job down in Eltham, not too far from Scotty's place. And we're sort of at this point where we've got the factory together and we've got like samples together. We've got a bit to show people, but how do you, it was a person we didn't know. It was a person that hadn't necessarily seen any of our products. They'd seen the development and the setup of our brand on our Instagram account, and that was it. So basically we were selling a product we didn't necessarily have in spades, which was difficult, but we had a lot of trust from this person, and they believed in what we were doing, and they liked what we were doing, and they liked where we were going. So yeah, it was actually a pretty difficult job for a first one. It was a kitchen benchtop with a waterfall end as a single piece. So there's a bit of a risk in transport and risk in the job itself. And yeah, it was like we actually nailed it. It was the first time we'd done something like that, and it went in without a hitch, and still haven't heard anything back from them. So I'm guessing it's still performing okay. So yeah, I mean,
so that's a dream start.
That's as good as it gets. And after that, it was probably a bit up and down, but like in saying that, we haven't ever really had any trouble with getting the work out, and we really base like our whole model and the way we go about it is, if something's not right, then don't send it out. Tell the client there might be a delay of 2 weeks, but at the end of the day, they're going to get a product that we're 100% happy with, rather than sending something that might be in between. So it's all that concept.
Close enough's not good enough.
No,
it has to be right.
Not when you work with Scott.
No way. Yeah, I'm a very meticulous person.
I can see from looking at the showroom and going back a few episodes ago, I had Nathan Gill, who's an electrician, and his business is very much automated innovation and the real fancy stuff in home automation. And looking at your showroom, it's very similar in the layout, in terms of when you walk into this showroom, there's a lounge setting, there's a bath or bathroom setting, there's a kitchen dining table, there's a kitchen island bench, plus furniture that's concrete as well. So what he found with his showroom, and I'm guessing that it would be the same with you guys, when clients come up here into your showroom, they'll naturally gravitate towards a certain part of the house. So in your case, the showroom, they might feel more comfortable putting their keys or phone on your kitchen island bench. And so straight away, you as businessmen can see this couple, they gravitate towards the kitchen and they feel more comfortable. So you can kind of pick up on that and apply that in your business and dealing with that client. So it's fascinating how your showroom isn't just a showroom, it becomes visually part of your end user's concept.
Absolutely.
Really.
And that's the whole idea. The whole idea of the showroom was we got sick of sitting in the old factory and having to show, 7 different squares for our colours and not having anything of real scale to show people and get a feel for the product, because you can't sell our product on basically a few squares. There's so much to it. There's so much depth to it. There's so much character that you need to show. So having this showroom was something that we said it has to happen, because otherwise we're not going to get the most out of our business, and we're not going to be able to really show what we can do, prior to someone coming to us and trusting us with their design. So as you say, the showroom, people gravitate to what they want to, but it also opens their eyes as to what more you can do with concrete and how unlimited the potential is. Because you come through here, you might come for a kitchen bench shop and you might leave with a basin and a vanity and
you can
a table.
You can upsell.
Yeah, exactly right. It's great. It's a great business idea in that regard. But yeah, I mean, that was the whole, idea of doing the showroom. And it's great to be able to just, come up here and say, this is what we're about. And people might not be sure, but I can tell you when they come up here, they're sure when they leave. So
definitely. Okay, so you guys are a team, and it doesn't really matter how your business is set up, whether you're a partnership or company. The fact is you're a team working together. So tell me what it's like, two mates working together on the good days. What's that like?
A lot of banter, a lot of
business
So just like the school days.
literally, yeah, quite literally.
Business is obviously it's an emotional roller coaster ride. So the thing that I not struggle most with, but the thing that I look at most is say, your relationship as best mates will never be the same, because you spend all day, every day with each other. It's hard to all of a sudden it gets to 5 o'clock and you just you just flick the switch that just turns off from work mode and you just become mates again. It's sort of like it's not like that. Your relationship will change inevitably. It's obviously just going to be about how you handle that. But there's days where all we do is smile and laugh and tease each other, and then there's days where he's on one side of the factory, I'm on the other, and all I want to do is throw a hammer as hard as I can.
I can feel the laser beams in the back of my head.
Laser beams burning in his head. So it's the way it's going to be. You've got to be able to appreciate the fact that you will have the good days and you do have the bad days, and if you're good enough people, you'll be able to get through them regardless. There's days where I want to, I just want to kill him, and then the next morning, we come in and any grudge that we had from yesterday is gone. It's just like, it's a new day. Yeah. That's yesterday's problem. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. We'll sort it out, and you start a new day, and you just move on. And we've another one of those instances where you sort of look back and you're like, we did 20-hour days and we never once punched on with each other. We never once yelled at each other. Even to this day, we've never once yelled at each other, because that's not the sort of people that we are.
Well, you clearly, and I can tell by sitting here talking to you two guys, that you clearly have a very mutual respect for one another and you have each other's backs.
Absolutely, you have to. And the best part about it is I can go away and make a decision and wholeheartedly know that Scott's going to back me up, whether the decision's right, wrong, or indifferent. I'm going to have 100% backing from Scott, and vice versa. Like he knows he doesn't have to come ask me about certain things, because he knows I'm going to have the same answer, and that's where that depth of the relationship comes in, being best mates and knowing each other prior to this. That we have that 100% backing of each other, and it's really nice to have that that feeling when you go away and your mates there, and you're going to make the right choice. So
yeah. Everything is a collective decision. So no matter what decision you make, whether I like it or not, it's a decision on behalf of us. And that's just something that if you're going to have a successful partnership, you need to understand that you just give your business partner 100% trust, no matter what. Whatever his decision is, that's his decision, but it's also your decision. And you just back each other up. And at the end of the day, if things go pear-shaped or if things go wrong, then you don't turn around and say, that was your decision, man. You look at him and say, that was our decision. Let's figure out how we're going to get out of it.
Yeah, totally. It's just like a marriage or any form
Absolutely.
of relationship.
Everything's about compromise. Everything's about working through things together. It's not me versus you, it's us. So you just have to appreciate that it is what it is. That's what you love about it, the fact that it is us, because I know without him there is no me, without me there is no him.
In terms of winning the work, and your business is, as we discussed earlier, is very niche, what's the process with, say, an architect or a client coming to you guys, or even a builder? How is that process carried out? Is it like a tender system, or because you guys are very niche, people come to you knowing what they want?
So it depends. And because a lot of people aren't familiar, or a lot of architects and the like aren't familiar with our product and what you can do with it, it's one of those things that we want to create a relationship where we can get in at the beginning of the project, and while we're in design phase, and say, all right, they say, this is what I want. And we work together and we get together and we say, all right, let's go through how we're going to make this, how we're going to build it, what the process is. And
now, I have to stop you there, because that's what I love to hear. And the people that are listening to this, they need to hear that. Yep. Because what you said then is so important, is getting in that early stage. But not only that, you're actually steering the client to suit your product to serve their purpose and what they want or what they need or what the architect's already designed. But you're investing that early upfront energy and trying to steer the client to, how can we help you? This is what we've come up with. Here's a solution for what you need.
Yeah, that's it. And the client's going to come with a vision in mind, or the architect's going to come with a vision in mind, but that vision's not always realistic and not always achievable. So it's coming to that point where every party's happy and every party can have their say and to some extent get what they want. And we want to get in there, so we get this planning in place early, and then we save the heartache down the line where something doesn't work or something cracks or whatever it might be that might put the job in turmoil. So yeah, it's always the best case. Doesn't always happen like that. So I mean, if things are designed and things can't be changed, we're go-getters and we don't like saying no to jobs. And we work through the issues that we might have and the challenges might arise from that. So it's, ideally in an ideal world, we want to get in at the start, but in saying that, we're happy to deal and help people where we can and give the right advice.
You said it just then, people driven or try and solve the problem and come up with a solution as opposed to just being cost driven. And at least if you can get that opportunity, you'll have that customer for life.
We could have turned our back on a lot of jobs if we were, cost driven and not about like we said at the start, like it's the type of people we are. We're not cost driven. We're emotionally driven. Where we want to help people, want to make people happy. The best part about a job is when you go to their house and the person absolutely loves what they say, and that's a good feeling. Sure, you get into business to make money. That's the end goal. But in the process, you don't have to peel back on other things and being a genuine human to get the money, or to get the end result.
Well, and that's, for me, it's sort of like you got to put yourself in the client's position and say, and there is nothing more disheartening to me than when I walk in somewhere with a question about how to do something or where I can get something and they don't give you anything. They just say, sorry, mate, can't do it. And you sort of look at them like, that's not helpful at all. Like, can you at least, guide me where I can go or let me know of someone that I can talk to? And if you walk out of there just completely bummed, it's sort of like, that all that's done is just taking the wind out of your sails. And you don't want to do it anymore. Like whatever you wanted to do originally, you're not interested in anymore. So I put myself in a client's position and say, there is nothing more heartwarming than when you walk in somewhere with something and someone might not be able to do it for you, but they can at least say, how about we try it this way, or go and talk to this person, or like someone that is helpful is always going to do well compared to someone that just says yes or no.
And that's important also. And I've had a few guests on the show who said the exact same thing, that there will be potential clients or customers at times where you have to say, look, I can only help or do so much. I think you're better off going to that person, or not in a bad way, but in a good way to say, you need to know your limit.
Absolutely. And that's like I always laugh about it when I look back on the lifespan of this business. Like when me and Michael first started, we would mow people's lawns when we were there. You'd wash their car, you'd do the dishwasher, you'd do anything just to keep the client happy. And over the years, as you grow as a business, you've got to learn to say, enough's enough, or, if something's not ready, we're not going to come, or because at the end of the day, your business is impacted, your bottom line is impacted because you weren't clear with people. And that's the number one thing for us. It's like if you are clear with people and you give them a direct message, it's taken a lot easier than if you fart around it, or if you don't want to tell them, or like Michael said before, if something's going to be late, you just tell them it's going to be late. And a lot of people at first might be a little bit disheartened, but they come around to it instead of you just not showing up on the day, which is even more frustrating. So you've got to know as the business person when to compromise and when to be clear and direct.
Yeah, that's great. What sort of marketing do you guys carry out with both existing customers and new customers?
It's one part of our business that we probably need to develop more in the way of marketing and getting out there. We do, social media is obviously huge and that's a big part in it, which is sometimes, something we forget when we are busy, because it is hard to keep on top of when things are going crazy in the factory and you're out on site.
Second priority when you're trying to...
Marketing is exhausting sometimes, when you're trying to figure out the socials and what photo to upload this night, and you've just had a massive day at work and you just think, I don't know, I just can't afford to do it. But that's only one portion of marketing is socials. And as Michael says, our marketing's not fantastic. I'd say a lot of our marketing also comes down to replying to emails when they come in and sending order confirmation packages and sending follow-up emails and making sure that everything is on a timeline and that the customer is kept in a constant communication throughout the whole entire process. I still see that as marketing. I still see that as a package that we sell, the brand that we sell. It's the constant communication throughout it. We lack on the social side of things, but I feel like when you're involved in the business and you're actually engaging with us, we're constantly communicating because that's what we pride ourselves on.
And your product markets itself anyway.
Exactly. The product, the photography, it doesn't take a lot to be able to market it that well. But, if we had more time, I would love to market a little bit better. So if anyone's out there that can help us with some marketing, get in touch.
I guess we've had a few publications go out recently, which have been really great for us. So the main one being the local project. We were in their issue 2 magazine and had a bit of a spread in there. So that type of publication stuff where it's really, I guess that type of marketing is really industry specific. It goes to your architects, goes to your builders, goes directly to the people that we want to get in contact with. So it is pretty effective for what we want. And the package that a lot of these places put together is fantastic. And you get I love the fact that I get a material thing at the end of it. I get a magazine, we're in the magazine and you see that. And it's something you can keep as well. It's something that makes you proud, and it's something I love giving to my mum at the end of the day and saying, "Oh, we're in here, have a read," and that type of thing. So it's I guess from that perspective, we have recently spread ourselves a little bit further. But yeah,
what's that feeling like at the end of a job when you finish it on time and you think, "Wow, we've nailed this." The client's happy, the architect's happy.
Relief.
Yeah, really. a large mix of emotions.
Yeah.
It's just so many things that can add towards how you're emotionally feeling. Like, you can absolutely nail the construction process in the factory, but something goes pear-shaped on site when you're trying to install it, or, we've had instances where the car can't get up the hill because it's too muddy, and it's sort of like it almost takes the wind out of your sails right at the end. But at the end of the day, when you can walk away from it knowing that you're genuinely happy and the client's genuinely happy, that's all you need at the end of the day. Like, as long as you can see the happiness on their face, or the fact that they love it, or they're going to tell their friends about it. It's not about us. It's them now. We've done what we could to make them happy, and now that they're happy, that's signed, sealed, delivered. We're happy. They're happy.
At the end of the day, when I put a product in and I say to a client, I'll tell them and I'll say, if you're happy, I'm happy. And that's the way the business works. That's the way we work. And at the end of the day, that's the end goal, to create a product that makes someone else happy. And that's what we're about. So, it's like anything, it's that I'm very proud of what we do. Every time we put something in, there's only select few people in the world that can do some of the stuff that we've done in recent times. So it's a great feeling of pride, and only we know how much work goes into a certain piece, and how much behind the scenes labor, and how much design and how much thought goes into those things. So a lot of the time, people come up to you and say, "Oh, that looks great," and you love that, but then you can sit back and say, "There was a lot in this," and that's the best part. Yeah,
for sure. Now, what's the most interesting or the most difficult concrete product you guys have had to build?
Curves are always, everyone sees curves and like, oh, that looks fantastic. But the amount of work that goes into curved form work just to make a simple curve is ridiculous. But that's what's beautiful about it. We've just come off a job that we did, a Norton Rose Fulbright solicitors.
Lawyers, yeah.
Yeah, lawyers in the city. So it's 3 large sort of semicircled curved panels that were, 2 were 900 high and 1 was 1100 high. And you look at them and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But for me, there was probably over 100 hours in just creating 3 simplistic sort of semicircle patterns. But for me, like, I can stand there and be like, absolutely amazed at how it came out. And then.
So for that particular job, was that designed? Like, was that put on a bit of paper by an architect or designer, or did you have to?
Car design came out with this one, and sort of when it slid across the desk, I sort of just looked at it and was just like, wow, like I don't think these people understand how much work is involved in that. And like even you're talking to the cabinet makers on site and they're like, oh, can you just do this and can you just do that? And it's just sort of everyone just thinks things can just happen.
No, we can't just do that,
No,
unfortunately.
I can't just put a bracket there, or I can't just do that. You are confined to limitations, but a lot of the time that's the most beautiful thing about it is the fact that you can see how much work goes into something, and that's why I love it so much. Is I personally get to see the one-on-one, the amount of effort that goes into it. So there is nothing better than at the end of the job being able to stand back and say, it may be simplistic looking and it doesn't look that fantastic, but at the end of the day, I know how much work I put into it and I'm completely stoked with it. So that's all I need as well.
On another note, outside of work, what gets you guys up every morning?
I mean, as we've said, we're not very money-driven people, so I enjoy going to work. But is it what gets me up in the mornings? No, not necessarily. I'm a real family man. I've got family around me. They're great. They're supportive. That's the best part. I'm a socialite. I love being around people. I love talking to people. Whether it be going down to the footy club and having a chat there, going and playing a round of golf with someone, having a coffee. That's what gets me going. I love social interaction, and that's why I guess in the business I'm front of house. I'm always speaking with customers and speaking with builders because that's what I get a kick out of. So yeah, I guess that social interaction and being around people is what gets me out for sure.
And do you guys socialise outside of work as well? Like been working the whole week together? Do you?
It's a soft topic between us.
That's the I guess when we do get a bit of banter going around the factory, it's like when you look at our relationship and where it was prior to starting the business, we'd literally live at each other's houses. Like we'd see each other 5 times a week, and obviously we see each other 5 times a week here, but in different circumstances.
Different
but yeah, like I'd say we have something to do with our group of friends and together every 2 weeks.
It was the period of life. At that time we were 18 to 22 years of age. When best mates just hang out all the time. You don't have girlfriends. You're out there just living it up, enjoying it. And then obviously when we first started the business, that's when life started to slow down a little bit. Michael got a girlfriend, and then the banter started that, I don't even see anymore. I spend more time with her than me. And then, but that was just the way life went. Maturity started, and you started hanging out with your girlfriend instead of your mates all the time. And so Michael's had a girlfriend for a few years now, and I've only just recently had one about a year ago. So before that, that's just the way that life went. It wasn't the fact that the business changed the relationship. It was just the fact that life changed a little bit. We weren't 18 anymore. We couldn't just hang out with each other all the time. You wanted to spend your time with your girlfriend and your family a little bit more than your mates. So, we are still best mates. We always will be best mates for probably forever, I hope. And that's one thing that we said to each other at the start was we looked at each other in the eye and we said, no matter what happens with this business, we choose our friendship over the business because, money doesn't make me happy. You make me happy. So if push comes to shove and things are going pear-shaped enough that our friendship is being sacrificed in behalf of this business, then we shut it down. That's just, and I would still do that now. It doesn't matter how much money and how much of my life I've invested in this business and how much, everything's riding on it. But at the end of the day, the friendship comes before the business.
And that comes back to having real values.
Absolutely. That's why, we both come from the backgrounds that we have, and we both can respect that, relationships and people and human nature comes before money because, like everyone says, money makes you happy, but people make you happier.
Yeah, well said for sure. Now, who do you speak to when you're thinking about making sort of big decisions? Like if you're having to invest in something with your business, or who do you speak to when thinking about the big decisions?
We're pretty fortunate that we have a pretty strong social network and a lot of mentors that we can bounce off. I guess when we started, not so much, and it was something that we sort of, led our way through ourselves. And as you develop and as you, mature a little more, you start to create that network that you can, ask questions of other people. And, we have mates that are builders and been experienced in the industry for 10, 15 years. You bounce questions off them. You create relationships with good accountants, and those people that aren't only accountants, they're people that give you strong advice, not only relating to your business and your financial capacity, but also on life and how you should think about going about things and how you should plan your future. And I guess that's what we've sort of developed and moved our thought process into getting as much knowledge and information from others as we can to, you don't have to take on what everyone says, but knowing about something, pick and choose what you want to use, but knowing and having that knowledge base from things is what you want. So it's definitely something that we've learned over the years.
Absolutely, for sure. And that's where we're sort of lucky. Like I look at both of our families, they come from pretty straight and narrow sort of societies. They've always been in the system and worked for someone. So, we'll go to them for some sort of advice. And like Michael said, you take their advice on, but it doesn't mean that that's all the advice you take. And over the last few years, being obviously involved in a business district, we've become very friendly with a lot of other businesses here because we try and use as many locally sourced goods because it's convenience factor. But there's nothing better than having a friendship in the area as well. So that, and there's painters and cabinet makers, steel fabricators, stonemasons, all those sorts of businesses in this area. And all we ever did was just walk in the front door and just say, "Hey mate, how you going? I'm Scott. This is Michael. We're the concrete guys up on the road." And then all that simple conversation sparked something. And now there's probably 20 businesses in this area that I could walk into right now and ask a favor, and they would drop everything and they would do whatever I asked right then and there, because that's what we pride ourselves on. Business is all about having a good time and building relationships and having those sorts of people that you can go and bounce ideas off. Oh, what do you think about us moving into a factory with someone else? Everyone said, don't do it. So we didn't do it. And there's nothing better than you can go to them and they can come to you. You can borrow something of theirs. They can borrow something of yours. That's what business is all about, enjoying it with other people. It's not just the two of us. There's all these other people that are on the emotional ride that we are. They're always asking questions about our business because they love it as well.
And just on the theme of what you mentioned then, I'm involved in a lot of disputes, and quite often I'll see trades that are out there trying to be show ponies, and everything looks good on Instagram, and they've got the brand new utes and the brand new uniforms and it looks good. But if you don't have those, and without sounding cliche, but the building blocks, the foundations of that good relationship with not only your business internally, but the external stakeholders like suppliers and people that you can just knock on the door and say g'day and talk to and pick their brain on different things, that is the difference.
That's what separates you from the rest, Like you said, the show ponies, all the gear, no idea sort of stuff, it would be a very lonely place if you want to be one of those people. It's like standing in a dark room on your own. You just don't know who's going to hit you over the back of the head when you're on your own. But if you stand in that room with 15 people that are just that are your friends and are business people just like you feel a lot more secure because you have the fundamental people around you that can back you up on your decisions and say you're all show, you're no go. So sometimes you just got to take things slowly and build slowly, but also build a structure with other people around you.
Yeah, and that goes for your employees as well, and making sure you have a relationship with them that you can bounce things off. They can feel free to talk to you, and you can feel comfortable, or they can feel comfortable in residing in you. And it's something that we had to learn from scratch because we'd never done it before. So it's always very interesting to see how those relationships develop, and making sure that they're happy, because at the end of the day, without those people down there working alongside you, can you do what we do? Absolutely not. So it's just, you've got to be appreciative of that and make sure that you keep those people happy that are going to help you go forward in your business.
And that's one thing sort of you could say that I would probably say is the hardest thing in business for us is internal relationships. Obviously we're both the bosses at the end of the day, but we're also just like them. We're on the tools, we're pouring concrete, we're installing things, but it's trying to find that balance between, I'm one of you, but I'm also not one of you. I am your boss at the end of the day, and what I say needs to go, but then also come in from an angle where you're like, I'm also one of you. Let's get through this together. I'm not going to yell at you or anything like that. So just trying to tread that fine line between a boss, but also a workmate at the same time is probably one of the most difficult things we have. I'm a very meticulous person, and it's hard to sort of not get frustrated at things sometimes, but you've also got to understand that it's never going to be 100% all the time. So you've got to come in it from their angle as well and say, okay, well, sometimes you have to compromise as well. So,
and it is difficult too. I'd imagine with your product being concrete, like textures can be different and light can affect it in different ways.
And that's the biggest battle of this business. Though, when people say, do you love I love business. Business is fantastic, but concrete as a product is probably the biggest killer for us because it's so temperamental. It's so dependent on weathers and humidity and just everything. All these external factors. You can be the best at what you do, but at the end of the day, you've also got this product that's fighting you as well, and you'll never beat the concrete. It will always be above you. You just got to learn to work within its parameters, and that's one thing that we sort of struggle most with, is because you're not just dealing with your own internal businesses. You also got this other beast in the corner that always wants to play games with you as well. So.
Yeah, that just happens to be the most important part of the business.
Yeah, and that's like there's so many jobs where you send it out and you think, there's a slight little mark there from no fault of your own. It was just the way it happened that day. The trowel hit it on the corner a little bit, and you stress about it. You think, is the customer going to worry about this? And you get it, and I love it. And then there's other pieces where you send it out and it's amazing, it's perfect, and they sort of like, I thought it'd have a little bit more texture. So it's just one of those. Every install we both still have butterflies. After 4 years, you still get butterflies in your stomach because you don't know if the customer is going to like it.
I think with your business too, my conclusion is that you guys are actually craftsmen. I couldn't put the trade badge on you. You're actually craftsmen in what you do. It's very unique.
And that's probably one of the difficult things. Like, you're craftsman, but you've also almost got to take it to a commercialised craftsman level to be able to sort of make money on it. Artists and that sort of stuff. We are artists at the end of the day. You are craftsmen, artists. You're trying to create crafty pieces, but at the same time, you've also almost got to commercialise it to still make it a business. Otherwise, you just end up not making any money. You're just doing it for the love of the concrete, but it comes down to, we are in this to make money. So just trying to find that fine line between being craftsmen but being businessmen at the same time.
And also relating it back to that reference to beast, as you said, where or it's like almost like a disobedient child, the concrete, and has moods, and you've got the time factor, and it labour intensive.
Runs away from you.
Yeah, that's right.
Sure.
And so it's unique. You can't really, you can machine some aspects to it, but it's labour intensive.
Yeah, it has its if it wants to go off, it'll go off. I can tell you that much. You'll be halfway through it and it's decided that I'm going to go hard right now on you, and then that's where the heartache comes. But
there's days in winter you still see 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, just waiting. Like you can't just put it down and I'll pick it up tomorrow, or we'll put a couple of screws in that tomorrow. It's like you just, it's a time thing. Once you start that timer, you got to wait till it's finished. You can't go home.
All right, so we're going to explore Concrete Collective's completed project in Mount Martha now. So what was the brief for that particular job?
So we did this one in conjunction with Cab Sav Projects and McGowan Architectural. So they were one of the great clients where they came in. The house they were still building the foundations of the house, and they had this design and this concept in mind.
They got in early.
Yeah, that's the key. Get in early, everyone. Get in early. But yeah, they came in nice and early. We met at their offices, and they had this concept, and they said, "All right, this is what we want to."
Was this
make
with the client as well?
With the client, yeah. So there was myself, the client, the builder. We were all in the room together, and basically we sat down, and I said, "Oh, okay, that's not possible. That's not possible. This is possible. We can tweak this here to make it work." So what were they wanting?
Was it like
so basically
island benches?
Yeah,
or
so as a big island bench with a double waterfall. There was a fireplace hearth with a double waterfall. The island bench was over 6 meters long. So it was
6 meters by 11. 6 meters by 1100.
Yeah. So and it had this detail, like a splayed shark nose detail to the corner. So it was angled to the corner. And at the very ends, it was a 20 millimeter thickness. So it wasn't really a product that was possible in conventional concrete because there was such a thin detail on that edge, and it was susceptible to cracking and chipping and the like.
Yeah, so concrete, it doesn't like thin edges or sharp bends. It likes wide, long surfaces.
Bulky.
Bulk thermal mass.
That's right.
And it's chunky and square and fat.
So I guess that's where our product comes into its own, where we can cast it, 12, 15, 20 millimeters to make things like that work, which is where, we got handballed this job from another concreter who said, I can't do this with my product. So we went through that, and
so you guys stepped up.
Yeah, it was sort of, I priced it and I knew it was going to be difficult. I knew we're based in Heidelberg, they're in Mount Martha. It's going to be poured on site. It's going to be 10 plus car trips there and back. But it's something that I knew could be a real statement for what we do, and it could get some real traction once it's built. And, you know, we went through a lot of ideas. Scotty's the guy behind building it all. I sort of, you know, I get it to a point where we can build it, and then Scott looks after that process and getting it built and getting it done. So he spent a few days out there, you know, forming up these 45-degree blades, I guess they are, on the corners with foam, which then didn't work. So we had to, you know, remove that product. I guess you can go into further detail on that.
Yeah, it was one of those jobs where sort of Michael slid it across the desk to me with like a bit of a cheeky smirk, and sort of I just picked it up and looked at it and was just like, oh, what have you signed me up for? But at the same time, it was just when the juices started flowing in my brains, it was sort of like, how can I do this? You know, what can I do? Is it formwork? Is it polystyrene? Is there, you know, how am I going to go about this? But it was one of those jobs where I, once completed, I could just stand there and like the grin would have been from ear to ear on my face, because it was sort of like, you know, another one of those jobs where it was sort of like I nailed it. Like, that looks beautiful. There isn't anything that on that job that I would have changed, because it was a well thought out process. I had enough time that I could sort of figure it out and put things in place and not feel like I was rushed. And it took me back to my carpentry days, because there was a lot of, you know, form work, a lot of angles and bevels and cuts, and you know, we're talking a product that, you know, I'm very meticulous, but, you know, it's all about millimeters for me. So if there's a millimeter gap here or a millimeter gap there, it's not good enough. So it was one of those projects where I was able to, you know, carpenters love angles. If you're a quality carpenter, you love angles. Some just like to stick build, but I love the fact that there were so many angles and so many things that I could stand back and look at and be like, I can confidently say you will not be able to find many people in Australia, let alone the world, that could have done that job. And it's not an arrogance thing, it's a confidence thing. It's knowing that, you know, you're good at what you do because you are good at what you do. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, you don't have to go and gloat about it and say I'm the best in the world, but you just got to appreciate that you say, yep, I was happy with that job and I think I did a fantastic job. And at the end of the day, I stood there and it was just like, it was one of those jobs where I had so much fun on it. And it's very rare sometimes to have a lot of fun on jobs, because it just does become a business and just does become another job. But that one was fantastic because we had fantastic clients, fantastic builder. Everyone worked together to get the end goal. No one was fighting against each other. If there was any issues, we'd talk about it. And it was just one of those jobs where you could just stand back and just look at the scale of the benchtop, like a 6 metre benchtop, all one piece.
And it looks impressive, and people will be able to look at it on our Instagram. And so, out of curiosity, how much of your work is poured in your factory downstairs versus on site?
So I'd say about 98% would be poured in the factory and a couple of percent poured on site. And basically that's due to the fact that we can control every single aspect of what we need to in the factory, and we feel very comfortable. As soon as you put out of that zone where you know you can control, like we say, concrete's a beast, and if things go wrong, they go wrong. So if we know we can control everything in an environment that's by us, for us, built for the trade, that's what we want to do. And sure, like in situ jobs come up, and when they're too good to, you know, drop and look away from, like the Mount Martha one, you suck it up and you do it. And it's hard because commercially it's hard. It's a lot easier for us to put out a good product and you know, do a decent job on the prefab stuff.
You can control it more.
Exactly. Yeah, you can get so.
And it's one of those products where you're dealing with like the dusts, water, a lot of different elements that sort of like, you know, you're talking in someone's house on pre-polished floors and that sort of stuff, and you're bringing all these elements inside. It's sort of like a lot of the time it's just not feasible. You know, the amount of time you'd have to spend putting plastic down on the floors and then going back and forth to the job multiple times, not having certain tools, and then pouring, sanding, polishing. There's so many elements to it that it just is better suited in a factory. There's a reason we have a factory, because we have to have all those tools at our disposal. And then you try and go out on site and you're removing yourself from a comfortable situation, and you can only bring as many tools as you can. Inevitably, you'll forget a couple. But then that also, you know, it hurts, because that means you've got to spend another couple of hours there, and it comes down to the bottom line of, are we going to make money going to Mount Martha 15 times. Obviously, you just price it accordingly. But a lot of the times, if something tends to go wrong out on site, then that's when it really hurts.
Yeah. And I guess the other thing is access is a huge one, because people come to us when, a general stone slab will be 3 meters to 3.2 meters max in length, and you'd have to have a join. So as soon as someone sees concrete, they say, all right, seamless, bang. I want a bench, it's 5 meters long, make it for me. And that's where we do get a lot of work in that regard, because we can create a seamless bench top that's, over 3.2 meters long. But the biggest thing there is, how do you get that into position without, one, putting strain on yourself and your workers and doing it safely, and two, without, taking out a wall or taking out a cabinet or doing this or scratching the floor or, so it's just a matter of making sure that we can, it's all about controlling as much of the outcome as possible. And yeah, if we can do that, that's a win. And yeah.
Now, if people listening to this want to buy your products from outside of Melbourne or interstate, even all around Australia, is that possible? Are there any limitations on where you can sell your amazing products?
Yeah, absolutely. We've done interstate jobs before, and a lot of those jobs end up being, pieces, like something that you can send, like a basin or a vanity or a table or something that doesn't actually require installation on our behalf. They're the ones that you can afford to send interstate. And then obviously, when it comes to us being involved in the installation process, we've done Indigo, Ballarat, Mount Martha, so all over the state. So yeah, there is no limitation in where we will and will not go, as long as it's within, as long as it's financially feasible for us and there's the best outcome for everybody. Then we won't say no.
Yeah. All right. So finally, if people listening to this want to get into contact with you or come see you at your showroom, what's the best way to go about it?
Yeah. So if you wanted to check us out online, you can jump on our website, which is www.concretecollective.com.au, and if you wanted to go to our contact page there, you'll see the website, the email address, phone number, whatever you might like. Generally, if you call the office, Maddie will pick up the phone. She's fantastic and she'll help you with whatever you need.
And I certainly encourage everyone to check out their Instagram page as well, and we'll have a few preview shots on there. All right. Well, Michael and Scott, I've got to hand it to you guys. This is quite an impressive showroom. I've thoroughly enjoyed sitting down, listening to you guys, old schoolmates, and you've carried that old family values all the way through to, your 20s, and you've got this really successful business. You're clearly in it because you're passionate for it and absolutely love coming to work every day. So congratulations to both of you, and thanks for coming on to Build Hatch.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolute pleasure.
Well, that was Michael and Scott from Concrete Collective in Melbourne. What I liked about talking to these guys is how Scott took his practical idea from working as a carpenter, took it to his mate Michael, who was in construction management, and together they teamed up to combine their very own different experiences and backgrounds to form a unique brand in the construction space by challenging the norm. Well done, Michael and Scott. As usual, feel free to follow us on Instagram or our website, where we upload a few photos of our guests and their work. From there, you'll be able to find out more about our guests, which I encourage you to check out. Have a great week, and you'll hear me on the airwaves next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Build Hatch.
You have experienced a Build Hatch developed production.